Have you ever heard a song that would fit into a game just perfectly? Hey people, voice talking to you, and this is the Axis Unseen. This is a heavy metal inspired survival horror RPG where we take on the role of a hunter of legendary monsters in a world just beyond the veil of reality. If you're brave enough to test your skills against folklore's oldest horrors, I'll have a link for you in the description where you can try this demo out for yourself. And if you want to see more of this game, there's a link down there to my full playthrough as well. So a little context for those who maybe haven't heard anything about this game. The Axis Unseen is being built by a former dev from games like Skyrim, Fallout, and Starfield. Yes, Bethesda. They left Bethesda specifically with the goal of producing this title, which they label as a heavy metal horror game. Now, I have to say that this title is much more survival horror or even action-based than pure horror, but the heavy metal inspiration is clear throughout. First and foremost, the game opens with a metal-based intro. Essentially, the opening is set to a song, with each section corresponding to the tempo and the feel of the music, and is timed to keep us moving along with it. It doesn't serve to introduce us to the mechanics especially well, and it's definitely a jarring sequence when you aren't accustomed to the controls. That said, it was really an experience unlike anything I've seen, and the mix of killer music and a fast-paced introduction to insane monsters and a stunning world was mind-blowing. The dev, Nate Percupile, was absolutely flexing here. And you know what? It worked. I was completely transfixed.
Oh my god. This is fucking insane, dude. Holy shit! Whoa, oh my god! Oh my god. This is intense, dude. I'm so into it though.
We play as a hunter of supernatural beasts from the annals of folklore. Willing or not, our duty was passed down to us upon the discovery of our predecessor's death, who I believe died in a vain attempt at defending our village from a horde of such monsters. Cursed with unnatural abilities and sight into the world beyond the veil, we make our way into that world to seek out whatever has been pushing these beasts out in such numbers, and, I believe, to put a stop to it. Now, none of this is directly stated, and the lore of this game is a tad dodgy as of the demo. That said, I kinda like the mystery, and it feels more like a story that reveals itself over time through environmental storytelling rather than one that just is poorly explained. The time period and the state of the natural world isn't exactly clear either, but it's definitely before firearms, and perhaps before iron weapons as well. My basis for this? Our primary weapons are a primitive bow, with arrows roughly carved from sticks and stones, and an obsidian dagger with a handle carved from the jawbone of the first of our calling. Super metal. As I mentioned though, our abilities range into the supernatural, and our bow is more than just a simple piece of wood. The tattoos on the back of our hand and the glowing markings on our bow serve as our HUD, and indicate our health, spirit levels, magic, heart rate, noise, and visibility. First off, crazy good UI design. Thumbs up. However, it's a little hard to figure out what everything represents at first, especially since the numbers are runic symbols that you have to learn. The game doesn't really direct you to the chapters of your journal that have this information, but it is all there, and I do think it's a really nice stylistic touch, especially since they're pretty simple to understand, and the game will translate them for you at important points anyways. I'll do a quick rundown of the HUD anyways for clarity though. The symbol of the horned god on our left hand represents our health. The less filled and warmer in color it is, the better. Next to that, once you unlock it, is effectively a radar, glowing in the presence of beasts and growing warmer the bigger they are. On our bow are blue numbers representing our collected spirit, and next to that are orange numbers which tells us how much spirit we have locked in. The dots tell us our magic uses, the checked lines tell us our noise, and the eye shows us how visible we are. Now, several of our sensory abilities and much of our magic won't work if our heart rate is high, so running and fighting will decrease our ability to use our extrasensory awareness and make it harder to hold our bow steady. As a hunter of the supernatural, and due to the fact that I mentioned this game was survival horror, you've probably realized that the beasts we hunt are just as dangerous, if not more so, than we are. Our goal is to make our way through the wilds beyond the veil, from gateway to gateway, as we explore the world, hunt monsters, and seek out new equipment and abilities. These gateways will be your refuge, and the journey between them won't be an easy one, as the monsters we hunt will be hunting us as well. We need to keep track of the wind so we aren't found by smell. We need to watch where we walk so we don't make too much noise. And we have to be careful not to leave an obvious trail they can use to track us. The kind of terrain you tread on can make a big difference. Stone is much louder and will make it harder to sneak. However, bare earth will leave footprints that can create a trail for monsters to follow. Knowing when to hide, when to fight, and when to run for your life is the key to keeping that life and all of the spirit you've gathered. Spirit is the ethereal resource we collect from slain monsters, places of power, and the remains of other people who made it to this world. Collecting it will restore our magic, and it can be spent to level up our abilities in the Hunter's Sanctuary beyond the gates. However, if we perish before reaching a gate, all the spirit we haven't carried to a gate with us will be lost, dropped on the ground for us to go back and pick up again, if we make it there before dying a second time. The Sanctuary, I don't know what else to call this hub area, they didn't actually give it a label, has altars where we can spend spirit to improve one of our 5 stats, each representing a different element of Arcana. Fire improves our strength, dodge distance, and how long we can keep our bow drawn. Water helps us control our heart rate and maintain our focus in battle. Air reduces the amount of noise we make and makes us more difficult to track. Earth improves our overall health and stamina, and lastly, Spirit increases our overall magic capacity. This hub also keeps track of our equipment and a record of each monster we've slain, offering us information on their background as well as their strengths and weak points. There are altars to refill our ammunition and supplies, and it also looks like there's a space for a vendor of some sort, and perhaps some other features of the game that have yet to be introduced to this area. As for the monsters we'll be facing, they are a sight to behold, and a terror to face in battle. The widespread influence of Nordic folklore in particular is clear throughout this game, but the monsters range from different mythos all over the world. The great wandering trees are accompanied by horned beasts, spiked werewolves, and even Bigfoot. There are also rare and more dangerous variants of these beasts with unique visuals and different, colorations.
Why? Never mind.
Some of these beasts are pretty simple to take down, and your first few encounters are likely to leave you feeling like a wolf among sheep. Be warned, though, that before long you'll realize you simply don't have the power or the resources to take on all comers. Different monsters will fight with different strategies and abilities. Since they will have a variety of armored body parts and weak points, knowing where to shoot is almost as important as knowing when to shoot. Keep in mind, we are hunting with a bow and stone arrows, though each direct hit is satisfying and very chunky. In fact, I'd say I've never seen an archery-based shooter with combat this visceral.
I have never seen an archery game this intense. Jesus Christ.
We only have about 5 or 6 arrows at any given time. Fortunately, we can recover and reuse our arrows, and they will magically fly back to our bow with a satisfying snapping sound. That said, you still have to find where your arrows landed, or slay the monster embedded with them, which can be quite a challenge when they strike stone and skip off into the distance, or when the monster you shot keeps running away with them.
Get over here.
Aside from our bow, we have an impressive dodge jump and our trusty obsidian blade. However, our knife is best reserved for finishing blows, as melee is not advised. You might note the antler crown of horned beasts and assume you can safely strike from the rear. You would be wrong and will get a donkey kick to the face for your trouble. There's pretty much no safe place to sit and stab a monster. They have an attack for almost every direction, most of them, so staying on their weak side is only beneficial if you keep your distance. With the extremely limited ammo in this game, you'll have to make every shot count, and I don't mean that in the normal survival horror fashion, I mean literally every shot. One misplaced arrow could leave you facing a charging Sasquatch with nothing but a piddly blade. Then again, I did pull off some pretty neat melee stunts in the thick of desperate combat. Though perhaps just a tad too restrictive, this mostly forces the player to stare down an oncoming monster until the very last second to deliver that critical hit. The closer they get, the easier it is to land the kill shot, but the more dangerous it is if you miss. Overall, combat feels awesome. The controls are super tight, the UI is responsive, and the impact effects are extremely satisfying. It's stressful, it requires a degree of skill, and it forces you to put yourself in danger in order to conserve resources. The only real issues at the moment are the lack of variety, too scarce resources, and the enemy AI. The lack of variety seems to already be on the mend, with lots more planned monsters and hopefully some additional tactics to face. The scarcity of resources can very easily be remedied by adding a couple more locations here and there to scavenge an arrow or two, or by improving the enemy AI. The enemy models themselves are really impressive for the most part, and both the 3D and the sketchbook artwork in our journal is incredible. However, they become a lot less scary once you watch them move around for a while. Their animations are very stiff, and they aren't especially adept at finding their way past obstacles. They get stuck on terrain on a regular basis, and some of their tactics are sort of confusing. Seems like they try to run away once their health is low, but I swear the only purpose of the fucking deer monsters is to take my arrows and run off with them.
All these bastards do is run off with my arrows. Where are you flying to?
Now, I imagine this is to give the player something to track down and finish off in a very hunter-like manner. But in combat with a big group of monsters, it just slows things down when you have to avoid the weaker enemies because if you don't kill them in one hit, they're gonna run off with your arrows and leave the bigger monsters to pummel you. Apparently, this won't be such a big deal later on, as we can find new equipment like bigger quivers, stronger bows and blades, but I didn't get to have a look at any of those in the demo. There's also going to be additional magical abilities which allow us to shift the terrain by dropping boulders on enemies and things like that, but I only got to try that briefly in the opening. Very fun though. One of the really cool abilities I did get to use was the Spirit Arrow. Firing this magical arrow takes our view to wherever it flies for a brief moment. We can use this to scout the terrain ahead, get a bird's eye view, or locate monsters more easily. We can also find other kinds of arrows in the world with unique elemental effects. The fire arrow is the most obvious and the only one I got to try out. Sure, you can light your stone arrows at a bonfire and use them to fight the massive wooden golems stalking the forest, but fire arrows will explode on contact with the terrain and create a raging inferno that will spread in the direction of the wind. You can use this tactic to trap monsters or create barrier blocking pursuit as you escape. Now, the visuals for things like spirit and magic arrows are currently pretty lackluster and mostly consist of standard glowing globules that float around. I'd really like to see some more original visual styles where magic is concerned, and I'd look to the glowing runes for that inspiration. The world of the Axis Unseen is stunning and absolutely massive in scale, at least visually. The ruins and obsidian skeletons left behind from untold ancestors are marvelous to look at, and the gleaming auroras and colorful sunrises that light the horizon show off incredible skeletons of long-lost giants, titanic ruins, and skulls of monsters we can only imagine the shape of. The terrain itself can get very repetitive, and it's not exactly an open world. More or less, the walls of the area will railroad you towards the next gate, which I suppose serves the game's overall progression, but feels a tad restrictive. And I'd like to see a bit more space between encounters to allow players to ruminate on the world and really get immersed in it before diving back into battle. That aside, the world building here already has an excellent start, with the notes left behind by our predecessors showing off some excellent prose and striking artwork of beasts and mysterious places. It's all very thought-provoking, and it fits right in with the game's style. And it makes players like me want to wander around and find out everything there is to know about the realms we're exploring and the world beyond, its history and its current culture. It's okay that I have more questions than answers at the end of the demo. But by the finished version, I feel like this game is going to have to dive into some more lore if it wants to stand out. Striking visuals and obviously kick-ass metal music aside, the world needs to have some concrete lore among its vague notions and sweeping brushstrokes. There's still a lot we don't actually know about this game, but fortunately, we won't have to wait too long to find out, as the game is slated to release on October 22nd. What I can say for certain about the Axis Unseen is that its sense of style is impeccable. The runes, the tribal aesthetic, the charcoal drawings of legendary monsters, and the overwhelming sense of smallness amid a world of ancient history and deep-rooted magic. There's just a whole page of shit I could say about just the way this game looks and feels. But at the end of the day, it's still gonna need a strong narrative and a world worth exploring if it's going to be that something special that it seems to be aiming towards. As both a metalhead and a longtime scholar of worldwide folklore, I'm thrilled to see the kind of game this could turn out to be. But I'm just the voice in your head. So what are your thoughts on the Axis Unseen? You see a lot of Skyrim inspiration in this game, or do you feel it's something all its own? Does the mysterious feel of the storytelling speak to you, or are you worried the story might not be worth your time? I'd love to talk with you about it down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like helps us get past the algorithm and keeps Bigfoot from eating my ass. Subscribing is the best way to support the channel and keep new reviews coming your way, because I put out new stuff every single week. Thanks so much for listening to me today, and you'll be hearing from me again real soon.
Oh, piss. Not good.